Good morning. My name is Pat Perotti, and as she already said, unlike a lot of the people who are here today who are talking about entrepreneurship and economy and ecology and energy and development, I'm a lawyer. No, I know you're not going to clap. I'm a plaintiff's lawyer. I'm a plaintiff's class action lawyer. Maybe one of the worst kind, according to some people. I saw some of the pictures up on the screen here with our last friend who talked about pop-up fixing broken cities, and she said we need to do a lot of things, but we need capital. We just don't have any money to do this. And so you can see up on the screen there we have, how many of you people tonight are going to go to dinner at Lux? How many of you are going to go to dinner over in Tremont or down in East 4th, maybe down at Lola's? You're going to have very nice dinner tonight, I'm sure. What if this was your dinner? In Cleveland. What if this is where you slept at night? This isn't San Francisco. This isn't Atlanta. You know where this is. This is downtown Cleveland. This is one of our many homeless sleeping on a vent. Here's an article from 2008. This isn't an old problem. This is a current problem. This family of two people, and the woman is pregnant right here, they live under the Detroit Superior Bridge. What does this have to do with TEDx? What does this have to do with development? The answer is that if you don't fix the problem from the bottom, you never fix the problem. I know when Danielle talks, she's going to be talking about knowing people in the community and being able to look across the street and say hi and have a good relationship and people coming in and populating your venues. What people want to come down when there's people laying around on the street without food and without money, without clothes and without shelter? But what if there was a way to fix these problems? What if there was money that wouldn't cost us a single penny in tax dollars? What if there was $60 million a year, each year for the state of Ohio, that could be used to give money to charities? Here's how it works. How many of you got one of those envelopes in the mail that said you're part of a class action? How many of you opened it and then threw it away? The reason is because they're very complicated. And they're made complicated, unfortunately, by the defense lawyers with the cooperation of my brethren in the plaintiff's bar, because the more complicated they are, what? The less people participate. So a company that's been found guilty of cheating their customers out of $1 million, usually it's very small amounts, and every one of you in the audience has been cheated in the last month, I guarantee you, by either a cell phone provider, a telephone company, an internet service company, a bank, a credit card company, or someone else, and I guarantee you, they have charged you some fee that is illegal under state or federal law. Why aren't all of you calling a lawyer? Who's going to call a lawyer over $2.35? People say to me, why do you bother with $2.35? And I say, because when you multiply it times 2 million, it becomes significant money, and it's just wrong. These companies get away with these kind of things, and you see what happens to the economy. How many of you have pension plans that are as good today as they were 3 years ago? You can thank the banks and the brokerages for that, because they did things without regulation that managed to ruin the entire economy of the United States for God knows how many years. So a company says, okay, we get sued, and they commit to pay $1 million in settlement of the class action. Well, the case usually takes 4 or 5 years, and we don't find half the people. Then some of the people like you throw the notices away. Other people, they have good intentions and they want to fill the notices out and they put them on the refrigerator and the deadline is March 1st and April 2nd they look at it and they say, oh damn, I missed the deadline. And that goes through and there's later incomplete forms. And so at the end of the day, how much does the class actually get out of that $1 million? They get 20%. What's the big question? What happened to the $800,000? Where does that money go? Where do you think that money goes? Anybody? Yeah, tell me where you think the money goes. to the lawyers. That's the usual suggestion a lot of people make. Don't the lawyers keep it? No, it goes back to the wrongdoing corporation. The company that committed to pay the $1 million, and assuming that there's dispute about liability, and the company said, well, we're not liable. We say, okay, fine, but that's not what it's about. It's about that you committed to the judge that in order to settle the case, you would pay $1 million. And that's what you would read if you went down to the courthouse. But in the end of the day, that's not what gets paid. And the court's not aware of that because the court isn't involved in the distribution process. And it's all a big sham. Well, there's another alternative. A doctrine called Cypre allows the parties to agree or the court to order that the money that's committed to be paid must be paid. And if it doesn't get paid to the class members, it gets paid to their indirect benefit to charities. And on July 18th, we had the good fortune and the blessing to be able to take money from one case, about $14 million, and give it to charity. Now, do you think that this is a good idea that should be used by all law firms? It isn't. It's only used by very few law firms. As a matter of fact, less than 5% of the law firms use it, and that's because it takes a lot of time. It doesn't make me any more money. If I settle for $3 million, 1/3 is $1 million, and I get the 1/3 whether I settle today and say, well, the $2 million can be distributed, but I'm not going to worry about the fact that they only get 20% of it, which is $400,000, and the other 1.6 goes back to the company. It's not my problem. I did my job. I'll take my $1 million and I'll move on to my next case. How many lawyers do you think would do that? Okay. The other alternative is you fight the defendant. You say, when you said $3 million, you meant $3 million. You're going to pay $3 million, not $1.4 million, $1 million to me and $400,000 to the class. And they say, oh, no, we're not. And they fight and fight and fight until the end of the day when they realize the only other alternative is to go to a jury trial. And instead of paying $3 million, they're probably going to pay a lot more. And so eventually they give in and they do it. But it's not something that's law. And so as a result, we have all these social problems that could be helped by Cypre money. And what you're seeing here are pictures of organizations and people that were specifically and actually helped by this distribution of Cypre money by one firm. And my firm's not the biggest firm in Cleveland, or not the biggest firm in Ohio. But if we can do $20 million in 4 years, can you imagine if the really big firms downtown got on board with this? Can you imagine who this could help? Could you imagine what kind of difference this could make in the Cleveland community? Could you imagine what this would do for your friends and neighbors and the problems and the difficulties that they have all the time in their lives that are much more important than renewable energy or electric cars or cleaning up bridges or selling medical products or any of the other stuff we'll hear about today? We're talking about real, serious problems. We're talking about people whose lives are misery because society doesn't have enough to help them. But society does have enough to help them. And society can help them through the doctrine that we have called Cypre. Cleveland Food Bank. Why don't we give them some money? Well, we did. Do you think they need any more? Of course they do. The money's already run out. You know, everybody knows Father John over at St. Herman's, over on 30th and Clark, St. Herman's Hunger Center. We gave them money. Guess what? It's run out. And so what do? What we do is called Brooke from CF. Who is this person? There's a birthday. Every kid has a birthday. For this little kid, well, basically for both of those little kids, these birthdays are very important. This is her 13th birthday. That's how many pills she has to take every day. Does anybody know what CF does to a child? It fills your lungs with fluid, and if the fluid is not eliminated by this little machine that she wears, this little vest that pats her chest over and over again, 3 different times a day for a long period of time so she gets that fluid out, she suffocates or she gets terrible infection and she dies. A few years ago, 20 years ago, CF kids had a life expectancy of 19 years. She's 13. She doesn't have much farther to live. But because CF has made advances, they're one of the only diseases that actually has made advances where they've actually started to cure the problem. And people say, they say, why do you do this? Why do you bother with this? It's because one day I went to cystic fibrosis and they had the chef's fantasy with Michael Simon and Donna Christ and all the chefs from Cleveland, and they gave the money and they auctioned off all different items. And it was 2.5, 3 years ago or something like that. And they normally raise a very large amount of money and the economy sucked, so all the donations were way down. The people in the room aren't people from the community like the guys we see laying on the vent. They're people like the folks from Cleveland Clinic and Lubrizol and Progressive, and they're all the big corporate mavens who are corporations. And you think corporations like this idea of cypre? For the most part, they don't, because a lot of those corporations are the ones who have to pay out that money. And they'd rather keep the extra money than give it away. But some corporations do like it. When they realize what it's about and how it can change the community, corporations like the Cleveland Clinic and Tom Zenti have given written support to this. Fairmont Minerals, Independence Excavating and the DiGeronimo companies, Dick Pogue from Jones Day, one of the largest defense law firms in the world. And the bottom line is, when I was at the CF event, I said, we're going to give you some money and we're not going to tell you how much it is. And they were excited. And the biggest donation they got that night, and I think they raised about $35,000, the biggest donation they got, single donation, was $6,000. And at the end of the event, I went up to the stage and I did my thing about, hi, they said, Mr. Perotti's here and wants to talk to you. And they said, who's this guy? And I said, I'm a lawyer, and everybody laughed, and I'm a plaintiff's lawyer, and some people sort of good-naturedly booed, and class action lawyer, and everybody booed. And then I asked them, I said, well, what if you got these envelopes in the mail, and what if we could take some of those monies and give them to charity? The light went on, and people said, oh my God, he's here to give us some money. And I said, what if we gave cystic fibrosis tonight $10,000? And the crowd was excited, and I said, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah, everybody's clapping. I said, what if we made it $25,000? I said, what if we made it $40,000? Somebody in the back said, sounds good. I said, you people are too easy. Ask for more. Somebody said, give him 50. I said, I'm going to give you 50. And they, instead of cheering or shouting, the crowd got completely silent. They were shocked. And then we said, what if we give you $75,000? And I didn't know that little kid. She walked across the stage, she put her arms around me, and she said, mister, you're going to save my life. And I said, honey, we're not going to give you $75,000. We're going to give you $185,000. And her parents, who are in that prior picture, who I also don't know, came up and hugged me, and they said, how can you do this? Where did this come from? And I told them, it came from class actions that weren't claimed. And I said after we got done doing that, I can never stop doing this after I saw that little kid on that stage. It's too important. And so we have asked the Ohio General Assembly to enact a law that would mandate this in all class actions. So that no matter whether the lawyers like it or not, you have to do it. If you commit to $1 million, you have to pay $1 million. That doesn't mean you have to commit to $1 million. You could commit to $200,000. I don't care what you commit to, but whatever you say you're going to pay, you pay what you say. It's transparent and honest. And those bills are Senate Bill 157, who are sponsored. Who would sponsor these, D's or R's? D's. They're sponsored by R's in the Senate. Two of the most conservative R's in the Ohio Senate, because they've seen what this can do for the community. And what we want you to do is, we want you to go on the website, and there's a link, and it says, help pass SB 157. We want every one of you today to go on that link and to complete that letter and to write that letter to the named representatives, senators, the governor, and Armin Budish, who's the Speaker of the House, so that you can benefit people like this little child, so that cypre can take care of people like this little child. Because the bottom line is, if we don't fix the community from the bottom up, everything we're doing here today isn't going to matter. Because without a good foundation, all of the rest of it falls apart. Thank you.